For sure. What I am most excited about right now is the marketplace that I'm rolling out. So my background is really like, I've been in my first thing in online business was I was in flight school and I was really passionate about fitness. And so I started a blog where I was trying to do affiliate marketing. I was using this website called wealthyaffiliate.com. And that was my first kind of venture. Went into that, tried to get rank on Google SEO, didn't work. And then I started investing into myself and into these coaching programs. I invested like $5,000 into this guy named Richard Yu. I was learning about productivity, time management, again, got into online sales, sold my own $500 fitness program, found out how hard it was to run a coaching business when you have no experience doing anything. Made a couple grand with that, but then I learned about appointment setting. And so I got hired as an appointment setter by Richard in April 2021, moved to Austin where he was at. Funny enough, I lived on Lake Travis near where Alex Hermosi used to live. I was like, I didn't even know at the time, but I was living like 15, 20 minutes away from him, when he was in Austin. And then, really scaled the business with Richard. We were hitting like $700K per month, cash collected. And I was running the appointment setting team, as well as writing up all of his Instagram stories, his Instagram captions, all the content, Facebook email list. Did that until the end of 2021. Then 2022 went off and did my own thing. Was managing another sales team on Instagram for an e-com coach named Ramin Popel, super good guy, friends with him. And then started my own offer. People wanted to learn how to get into appointment setting. And I trained like 20 people at this point and got tons of people hired. And I'm like, dude, I need to run up my own offer and create a course and be a guru, Yeah. So I started that, and it's been almost a year now. And really, I've developed out like the course and I have live coaching calls, classes. I have the Slack mastermind, kind of similar to Discord. We've got a couple hundred people in it. It's a high ticket program. Mm-hmm. But recently I've kind of been moving away from like selling the course, because I think there's just, a lot of people would just want that free information, and YouTube's out there. And so I just gave away my course for free. And now what I'm really focused on is developing out a web app, which is the Setter Marketplace, which Jack, you're actually inside of. So the big project for me right now is building that out. I've got a right-hand guy that's working on the training process for the setters. And for me, it's really about making sure that our setters are getting hired and paid as quickly as possible, to decrease that time delay and effort and sacrifice required for our students to get results. And so that's the main thing I'm working on right now. I'm building out the business owner assets so that, business owners can come through, see how I've trained my setter team, see how you can hire setters. And then I'm going to be working with a software engineer out in Austin to actually get a website up and running, get a landing page, and then kind of create version 2 of our marketplace.
Very nice. Now, like rough timeline as far as what version 2 looks like. Do you have a goal in mind of when this stuff comes together?
Yeah. So right now what the marketplace looks like is it really started about 4 months ago. And I'd placed about 50 setters. You guys can see the whiteboard behind me. When I started my program, it was a $3,000 offer. A setter would say, hey, hit me on Instagram, right? I'm getting bigger on Instagram. They'd be like, hey, I want to get placed as a setter. Can you help me? I'm like, yep, go through my training process. We'll do a couple of role play practices, and then you'll do a role play exam with me. I'll make sure you know what you're talking about. And then I'll get you placed with like a few fitness coaches that I know. So I'm like friends with Grego Gallagher and Kino Body. I'm friends with Vince Del Monte, who's like a fitness business coach. And all these guys are hiring setters. I'm like, okay, I'll give you a guaranteed job as a setter. And it started off manual process. So that was like V0 of the marketplace, was me manually literally going, here's the list of setters. Here's the list of business owners. How do I match people up? And I was like going on iMessage and like creating an iMessage group chat. And after doing that about 50 times, I'm like, this is not scalable. I need to actually create a digital platform where people can connect with each other without my time involvement. And even hiring team members, I tried that a little bit, but like most of the business owners know me and trust me. And so I need the marketplace to basically act as like the bicycle of my thoughts, right? The bicycle of my whole placement process, so that I'm leveraged in my activities. And so V1 right now is we set up 2 type forms. So type form is like a little software you can use. It's a link, blast it out. Setter fills in their resume and their information. Business owner fills in their company data. We have 2 sides that goes into a Notion workspace automated with Zapier. And then from there, we have email and SMS automations for when a new setter joins. Business owners are texted and emailed. When a new business owner joins the marketplace, our setters are notified. And right now. So basically it's like a public CRM. So like most businesses have their CRM private. Any business owner that applies to work with me gets added to this master list on Notion. And then that Notion is accessible to all of our setter students. And then our setters are also listed on it. So it's like two-sided CRM.
Very nice. Yeah, this system, as someone who's literally gotten the opportunity to use it firsthand, like very, very off to a very good start. I'll put it that way. I think it's super cool. Like personally, just like getting the notification like on my phone, like a new setter has been available. And if I have time in between calls, I'm like, oh, cool. Like for example, one stood out to me the other day because it was from another country, and it was like in such good timing because I just had a call about expanding our agency over to Europe because I just thought there was more opportunity there. And I was like, oh, cool, this setter's like kind of in that area. Let me take a deeper dive into it. So as a user, hell of a job. And I can't wait for section 2. I know we talked about it. I'm excited to see the training side to it because now that allowed me, like by having like easy access to setters for the longest time, I did have a problem where I just couldn't find the right salespeople. I was hiring friends and like it wasn't working. I thought 100 DMs a day was simple, but it's just not, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, like as someone who uses it, that just became like a super simple outlet for me. Now I'm learning, okay, maybe I have a weakness in setting these people up for success, or like, how do I best develop these systems? What are people around me kind of doing? So it really got me thinking, and I'm really glad now I've like kind of learned to like manage these guys as I went. They all do a great job. So, and yeah, from that, I kind of want to tie into like the reason behind why you got going with like why you wanted to create Master Setter University. Why was that important to you?
So really like, deeper into my story. So I was in high school. I'm from Toronto, Canada. And my whole dream throughout high school was to be a commercial pilot. So that's what I worked towards. I was in like a military program for all of high school to become a pilot. And so that was my whole dream. And then I went to college and I failed out in the first semester, paid $7,000 tuition, had 6 super difficult classes in like math, physics, and I failed out first semester. And it was very painful for me. It was a very draining experience. I failed out of school. My whole family was very disappointed in me. Most of all, I was disappointed in myself. And then the following 8 months after I failed out of school, I was working as a dairy boy at a local grocery store. And that is when I hit the wake up call on my life, because I'd had a pretty easy life up to then, of like, if I don't figure something out, this life is not going to be fun. Waking up at 6 a.m., like pouring hot water on rotten milk on the floor and then scraping it up, and just doing like the most mind-numbingly boring tasks, like stocking frozen pierogies on a shelf. And I did that for months and months and months, minimum wage. And I realized I needed to figure something out. And so then I went back to school, to a different flight school in Sault Ste. Marie, paid more tuition, and then COVID hit. And throughout that whole time, I realized that I didn't really want to be a pilot. I more just liked the idea and the status and the clout of being a pilot more than like I actually like to fly planes. Like it was fun, but it wasn't like I wasn't waking up in the morning completely passionate about doing that. And so really my why for Master Setter University comes down to the thing that really changed my life was learning about copywriting, learning about online business. And then that pinnacle point where I really took off with my income and my impact was with appointment setting. Because I believe it's the easiest, I believe it's the best entry level skill for anyone that wants to be an online business. Because there's really like 4 main components of online business in general, anything, like including e-com. It's traffic and content, or your ads, like just getting that first eyeball, getting that first impression. And then appointment setting is, especially for high ticket sales, is where you learn how to get people to show up. And I think that it's a much easier skill to learn than like actually going into like closing deals and sales, because a lot of people have limiting mindsets around money. But appointment setting is a very good introductory skill. And I believe that's why it worked well for me, because all I had to do was book 6 calls a day. I wasn't closing any deals. I was just making sure that people showed up to the call. And so it was a really powerful thing to learn. And once you learn that skill, it's the best foundational skill that you can stack marketing, creating content, closing deals, and then actually doing fulfillment. And so that's kind of my why, man. It's just part of my transformation. It was part of my story. And so it's the most authentic kind of vehicle that I can express myself in my business.
Yeah, and I've heard you say in your content a lot, or like especially in those interviews I watched, but a lot of your content, like the best guys right now, and you talked about like the top four, if I remember correctly, you know, in your eyes, like Hermosi, Cardone, those guys of say Gary V's of the world. I know there's a fourth one I'm missing.
Tony Robbins.
I'm sorry.
So Hermosi, Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Tony Robbins. Those are my four main mentors.
Yes, and you said one thing like they do very well is like they're extremely relatable and they're 100% who they are. And like this is a direct result of like you seeming to follow that path of like, okay, I was at kind of rock. I even told one of my friends, a good friend of mine today, this at coffee, but like you were at that point where you're like at a low point, and then you just kind of took it and were like started following the cues and what you like to do, and then that became like, okay, like I got, you know, some traction out of this, and now how can I help other people also discover how simple this is? So I think that's super cool. And what I was saying was when I went at coffee today, she was kind of in a rut, and I was like, well, go back to like when you were kind of there last time. Like, what did you kind of start doing? And she just talked about how like she started creating, and then I was like, well, like let's tap into that, start doing that consistently. Now, can you describe to me in one sentence what it took to go from flight school dropout to 100K per month?
One sentence?
Yeah. Challenging you a bit today.
That's a good one. One sentence. Having an extreme sense of urgency. I talked about this on Nabil's podcast as well. Do you have a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, I do. Having
an extreme sense of urgency is the one sentence answer.
Yeah, and my follow up for that is because I did a whole thing on this. What does an extreme sense of urgency look like? What are we doing to activate that on a daily basis?
So yeah, I mean, this is like I learned a lot of things from like my mentors in my life, but most people think about their goals in a 1 year span, in a 5 year span, and a 10-year span. I look at my goals on like a weekly basis and on a daily basis. The follow-up rate at which the same way the fortune is in the follow-up in sales, the fortune is in the follow-up with yourself about what you want. If you're not constantly reminding yourself of what you're working towards, you're going to fall off track. It's like when you're flying a plane, and I used to be a pilot, right? So I know this stuff. When you're flying a plane, and especially if you're on a long flight, you have to constantly check, am I on the right trajectory or not? Because if you're even 1 degree off of your flight path, you're not going to go to the right place. And so for me, it's about having an extreme sense of urgency means checking in on yourself and having extreme self-awareness on a daily basis, writing your goals down every day, or at least thinking about your goals every day. Having a way to and especially serving on a daily basis. So like one of the things that I've done in a really extreme way is I've probably posted on my Instagram story every day for the last 8 months straight, at least, if not more. And part of that is because I did that for Richard in 2021. So it was a habit that's very deeply ingrained into me. But the other thing is just like, I've seen the effectiveness of it. And that's what a sense of urgency means, man. It's like, you got to like check in daily. Like, I think the power of every day, man. Like even when I was getting started, I was posting, I did like this 90 day bicep curl challenge on TikTok where I filmed myself doing bicep curls every day for 90 days. I did, when I joined Richard's Facebook group, his productivity course, he had like a client Facebook group. I posted value in there every day for 60 days. And I think that to get to the top 1% of like high performers and to be like, have exceptional results, you have to do things that other people aren't willing to do. And a very easy way to do what other people aren't willing to do is do something consistently every day. Anything that you do every day over like a 1 or 2 year time horizon, you will have extraordinary results because most people can't even do things consistently every week, let alone every day.
Right. And why because I'm fascinated with this concept. I really am, like in the last just year and a half of consistency and just how it compounds and everything. Why do people feel why do people lack this? Why does the average person, why do so many people fail to be consistent with just that simple thought of one thing, doing the same thing every day? Like why do we struggle with that?
Why do we struggle with consistency?
Why do we struggle with the concept of just doing like one thing consistently not focusing on doing 10 things maybe the same way every single day? But why can't we just lock in on focusing on starting with one thing and repeating it for a consistent basis and then seeing what comes out of it? Why do we struggle to make that first step?
I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think on a high level, it's really about most people, they care too much about what other people think. And because they care too much about what other people think, they're going to be swayed very easily. So when they're doing something consistently and they're not getting that like positive feedback, that societal positive feedback, it's very difficult to continue to follow through. So that's on a high level. And then on a deeper level, it's because their intentions are not completely pure. When you do something that's in service of others and you get that positive feedback every day. So like when I post stories, right? When I started filming myself, I didn't do it on a public Instagram. I did it when I invested myself and I was inside a paid community when I was getting that feedback loop. Like, Aaron, great job. Like, thanks for the value. Thanks for the value. And you start rewiring your brain that, oh, people actually do want to hear from me. People do want to hear what I have to say. And then you can do that on a wider scale. And so the reason people have struggled with it is, number one, they're not getting that positive feedback. It's like you're the average of the 5 people you spend time around. And if you're spending time around people, or, at a very base level, you're the product of your environment. And so if you're in an environment where people aren't consistent, you're not going to be consistent either. And so I think that's also one of the biggest values that I got out of investing in myself and like buying coaching, buying skill sets, buying mentorships, is I put myself in a position where I paid for it. And so I'm going to pay attention to it. And the people inside there had a similar mindset to me of growth, and other people were consistent alongside me and being held accountable, 100%.
And I think just an overall topic of that, why people switch, is Hermosa called it the ecstasy of something new. And like he was talking about why business owners we constantly change their idea and change this and change that. But he's like, look, dude, stick to the idea that you saw results from, do it for 10 years straight and look around and see if you're not where you're at. But if you constantly change it, because like you said, that instant gratification of, oh, look at them like venturing off to something new and look at them, doing this, that can get really addicting. I'm a firsthand example of that. I always like to make a point of that on my show. Like, I am somebody who is in the process and wanting to educate myself on how I can get further along. I've struggled with that. I've literally struggled 100%. What kind of is Profit Jack? Where do I want to go with it? For a while, I would transition it to the exciting thing. Very in the last 12 months, did I focus on what am I good at? What do I really like doing? And how can I provide value? And like you always say, that's when I've seen the most results. That's when I've seen the most consistent results, is not worrying about the ecstasy of something new and also forgetting what anyone has to say about it. So super cool to hear you say that, man. I really appreciate that. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that. Now, in terms of decision making and massive action, right? Like they go hand in hand. What do you do to generate confidence and feel validated in the decisions that you make?
What do I do to feel validated in decisions I make?
Yeah, I think the reason I say that is because I think when people when they say, oh, I'm indecisive, I think it's because they don't have the confidence in that decision they're thinking about making, the confidence that they're about to make. To make quick, decisive action, you have to get to that confidence quick, right? Like, you have to have that, or I guess skip that, or how we navigate that. How do you personally have the faith, this decision that I'm making, how do you make quick, decisive action? Is the best way to put it.
Yeah, well, quick, decisive action, I think it really comes down to, number one, your why, because you're only going to make quick decisions if you have a reason to. And understanding that you're working against human nature. Like, human beings are not designed, our brains are not designed to wire for quick growth. They're wired for safety and survival. And so you have to rewire your brain, especially if you're like 99% of the population. You have to go into it with expectation that it's going to be hard. But as far as making quick decisions, it's really about, I think the other thing is you have to model off of people that are making decisions the way you want to, right? It comes down to mentorship. You have to learn and you have to observe people that take fast action. So like when I lived with Richard, I saw the way he operated on a daily basis for months. And when I saw that for month over month over month, I didn't have a car. I was in Austin. I didn't really leave the house that much. So I was just around him all the time. We were going out to dinners all the time. And I just saw the way he operated. Everything was fast, not uneducated, but as soon as he had all the information, quick execution. Like if there was a $50,000 mastermind and he knew that it was the right fit for his business, he'd execute on it quickly. And so I think you have to observe someone that is making quick decisions before you're going to have the confidence to do it yourself.
100%. That now, speaking of that thing with Richard, where you lived with him, can you take me through a day in the life working for your mentor? I think, like, what should someone expect if they're thinking about that leap?
Yeah. So the situation I had with him was kind of unconventional, which I think is why I'm kind of experiencing unconventional results right now. But I mean, with him, man, like it was, he'd be knocking on my door at 5 a.m., get out of bed, like, let's get to work, take a cold shower. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. was deep work. And so I'd be writing out content in the morning, going over the metrics for the team. I'd usually get a super long Slack message from him, very anxiety inducing, but, was really good for me in the long run. And then throughout the day, especially when I was an appointment setter, it was really just focusing on one target. So my big number was 6. Every day, my target, especially in the first couple of months, was to hit 6 booked calls in the calendar, 6 qualified booked calls. And so our program was a $6,000 program. Everyone needed to have $1,000 budget to get on a sales call. And I needed to make sure I sent out all the assets, like all the VSL and the video sales letter, making sure everyone had watched it before they attended the call. Every day, if we had 20 calls the next day, I would send out call confirmations. So all the calls for the next day, I'd be like, hey, this is just Aaron with, Richard Yu's office. You ready for the call tomorrow? Yeah, I'm good to go. Mark them off on the CRM, day of, confirm all the calls for that day. And really from there, then, like 6 calls per day, just focusing on that one metric every single day, communicating in Slack. And then at the end of the day, I'd be intermittent fasting as well. So I'd usually eat lunch at like 2 p.m., dinner at like 6 to 7 p.m., a couple hours of rest, and then go to sleep at like 9, 10 p.m. That's kind of how it worked for months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was as an appointment setter, right? Correct.
Yeah. As an appointment setter. And then, so I started as a setter in April 2021. Mm-hmm. I moved to Austin to live with him in June. I got promoted to setter manager in July and started writing up the content every day. And then, from July through to the end of the year, I was writing content, waking up early and scaling the team.
Yeah. Super cool. I can only imagine how much you were really able to learn from that and doing it, what seems like the rock bottom, learn everything and then apply it. But I think, again, it adds trust to what you're doing now. It just adds more validation to like kind of where you're at now and how we can really trust what you're saying, the taste you've had of it. Now, mentorship, we'll stay on that for a little bit. An effective way for someone to find a mentor.
Yeah. So there's one of 2 ways. The first way, which is what I did first, is number 1, you need to find someone who is doing exactly what you want to be doing. It actually doesn't matter how much money they're making. They should have some sort of track record, but you need to find someone that you're in very much cultural alignment with, as far as like their value systems, their belief systems, the way they operate, the way they communicate. You understand them very clearly. And once you find that person who's done exactly what you want them to do, which may not be your parents, it may not be your friends. I think that's a mistake people make, is like, if your dad is your mentor, it's fine. But if your dad's making $50K a year at a 9-to-5 job, don't expect to be doing better than that, right? Because you can't do, your mentor is the example for you, right? So to find a mentor, one of 2 ways, right? Number 1, try to work for your mentor for free. You're not going to find, like when I started working with Richard, he had already, done, a couple $1 million in sales. And so the mistake I think people make is they expect super wealthy people to just hire them. And you have to understand that for people at a certain level, they're not just going to hire a random person. Even if you want to work for them for free, people's time is much more valuable than money. And people that have a lot of like social media presence and have made a lot of money already, their time is more valuable than their money, right? And so with that in mind, you can find a mentor, you can work for someone for free. So to answer your question, there's two ways. There's the free way, which is you can find a mentor. They're probably not going to be way ahead of where you are. They're probably going to be somewhere, maybe like a couple steps forward. Like if you're making like $2-3 grand a month, you're probably not going to get a mentor that's doing more than 10K per month. Just because you don't have a lot of value to add to them other than your time. But if you want to move faster, like me, you pay a dude on the internet $5 grand and then you post and coach all of his students for 3 months straight. Yeah. And you expect nothing, right? I got rejected even after investing in Richard, it took me 4 asks to finally get a yes. I invested in his program, $500. I sent him a really nice email, never got a response back. I'm like, Richard, I'll work for you for free. He was living in LA. I'll move to LA. I'll be your slave, man. Like I will do anything you want. Didn't get a response. Then I won this one-on-one coaching call award. I made this entire PowerPoint presentation on how I wanted to work for him. I wanted to, edit his videos, do sales for him, anything. And he straight up said, it's not going to happen to me on the call. And I was like freaking devastated. Kept going, invested another $4 grand with him, ran my own fitness coaching business, like hustled for 3 months straight. And then finally, 8 months after I started investing with him, he reached out to me for a job, for a commission-based job. Keep in mind, this was not a salary position. But I think, it takes longer than people expect it to. And to find a mentor, if you're willing to use your money, you're going to move a lot faster, because you have to understand that lots of people want to have the time of valuable people that have information. And, I think we're moving from an information economy to an access economy, yes. Right? That the reason why I've set up the marketplace the way I have is because when someone pays me, I don't want them to be paying for information. I want them to be paying for access to someone that is affiliated with me or myself, right? And so those are the two ways, man. Free way, if you're willing to hustle your ass off and it's going to be way harder and it's going to take way longer. Like it took me 8 months from when I was 19, 20 years old, 8 months of hustle and effort and investing in myself to finally get someone like Richard to hire me. And Richard was in April 2021. He'd maybe done $1 million in sales. He was not like where he is today, where he's done like 15 mil.
Yeah. And it's so funny that 8 month time period. I recently had Jacob Hopkins on the show. And as you know, like he was his apprentice of sorts. And he actually said exactly what you said. He said, you know what, man, people think it's going to happen in like 30, 60, 90 days. Could it? Yes. Will it likely? Probably not. He goes, it took me 8 months before Hermosi believed in me enough to let me close his deals for 8 months. Eight months. Yeah.
Exact same thing for me, man. 8 months. I invested September 2020, invested in $500 in his productivity course.
Yeah.
In September 2020, then another $500 November 2020, and then another $4K for his business coaching program. And then I still had to hustle it out for 3 more months after paying him $5 grand. And in that 8 month period, he's like, okay, shit, man, Aaron's like still showing up. Let's like give him a shot.
Yeah. Like eventually they're not going to be able to ignore you. You were just talking about the access economy. Let's dive into that a little bit. Explain kind of what you mean by access economy and why do you see the death of the info economy and the new transition into the access economy?
So about, at the start of the pandemic and like this high ticket coaching, consulting guru industry has really been around for like 10, 15 years. It started with like Ty Lopez and like maybe a couple other guys that I'm not fully aware of. Since really Instagram and social media, as we know it now, has matured. And there's so many courses, there's so many YouTubers that offer free information. You go to any YouTube channel, all of the information or skill set you will ever need to learn is available on YouTube or online in general for free. And so we still have people today that sell information, right? They have like a $1,000 course or $500 course, and people are still buying it, but because of how much information is already out there, it's getting harder and harder to sell information on its own. What has increasingly become valuable is access. Every single transformation story, including my own, is not, I watched this one course and my life transformed. It's, I met this one person and my life transformed. It's always, in any business, right? Even if you go to Harvard, your life is not changing because of the stuff you learned at Harvard. Your life is changing because you went to Harvard, you graduated, and then some Harvard alum that works at a law firm hired you, right? It's all about access. And even now, like maybe 10 years ago, it was about information because it was like, how do you film content? This is all cutting edge. But if you want to learn anything, you go to Google and you search it up and you can find a freaking 2-hour-long video that explains it in depth, right? But YouTube videos don't let you meet people, right? Unless you like comment in the video and then like the creator responds to you. But for the most part, that is not really how it works. So I think we're moving to the access economy because so many people are craving human connection more than ever. Social media has segregated people and not brought people together. And when, for example, I have a Slack community with 200 people in it, when people are engaging with each other and hopping on calls, the value is out of control. Like even, for example, obviously Richard was my mentor and he's hired me, but one of the guys I met in his program, his name's Patrick Langus. He's my right-hand COO guy. He helps run the training process for our setters. I literally met him on a random Zoom Connect call in December 2020 when I was inside Richard's productivity course Facebook group. And so the fact that I've now built a 7-figure business from just a random connection that I made back then shows you the value of access and community.
Yes, 100%. And I'm so glad you said that because we'll dive into personal development, relationships, a little bit. But kind of the whole reason, me and Aaron are even here having this conversation today, literally, like I interviewed, actually, shout out Will Coomer, who works for Arlen, kind of in his sales department. And then he put me in touch with Nabil. And he's like, Nabil would be a great guest for you to interview. And then I saw Nabil's from Canada and you guys had connected and I had followed you a little bit. Like you'd kind of shown up on my feed probably from that. And I was diving in. I was like, I really need to learn. I want to learn sales. I want to commit like 2 or 3 months to just learning sales for my business. And so I started watching a lot of your content and then it just kind of naturally came together. So like, that's really like the purest power of relationships is like seeing those mutual connections you have, starting to become aware of the people you're attracting, kind of the conversations you're having. And slowly but surely, my ecosystem's changed because I started making those like conscious decisions and like looking around like that. So that's super cool. What's been the most important thing you've had to unlearn?
Ooh, unlearn. My shitty middle-class money mindset has been the biggest thing that I've had to unlearn. And I have to give full credit to Grant Cardone for this.
Okay.
Even when I was a setter and I made about $65K when I was working with Richard and like commissions and, base salary from writing content, I kept a little bit of that. But when I moved on and was unemployed January 2022, maybe had a few grand in the bank. I just started renting out the place I'm in right now. It's like $2K a month. And I had to, throughout that year, as my income grew, I had to learn how to invest in myself. Because when I was working with Richard, I wasn't really investing in myself. I was like basically paying crazy rent because I was living in a mansion with him and then paying for a private chef and stuff. So if I made 10K in a month, it basically wasn't keeping any of it, which was fine because I was in a learning stage. But like the biggest thing I've had to unlearn is the money mindset. 10X, right? I have all over my desk. I've got like, no negativity allowed. Who's got my money? Champions dominate. Wannabes compete. And moving out of because my goal used to be like make 10K a month and live like a laptop lifestyle. But the thing I've had to unlearn is you got to 10X, right? And part of 10Xing is understanding money and understanding how it really works and unwiring the scarcity that people have around money. And so when I had about 30K in the bank early 2022, I'd made a few sales, I'd placed a few setters and things were going well. I had an opportunity to go to 10X GrowthCon, as well as investing in like Cardone University. And so I dropped a few grand, which was super scary. I paid for flights, hotels. It was like literally a quarter to a third of my bank account that I invested in myself. And then I kept investing in like other things. I invested in Wake Up Wealthy. $8,000 coaching program based in Austin. And all these places that taught me like the value of using your money. Because I think people are scared. I think people try to save money because, you know, the middle class believes you should save money, save for retirement, all these things. But yeah, Grant Cardone, the biggest thing if I had to unlearn is that money is not meant to be saved. Money is meant to be used, and money has no value until it is used. And that simple, it's one thing to hear that, and it's another thing to actually truly understand that and take action through it. And so that's the biggest, I think when I worked with Richard, it was a lot of learning. And then last year, as I was scaling my business, it was unlearning the middle class mindset. And now even when I go visit my dad and my family and my mom, I notice these old beliefs that they espoused. You know, my dad's like, oh, you know, this ticket price was $120 and now it's $140. And it's like, your goals need to be so big, but your problems pale in comparison, right? And like when you obsess about the price of gas and you obsess about the price of this and groceries going up and inflation and all this bullshit, you're thinking at a small level, right? When you truly think big, these little money problems start to fade away. And when that happens, you're able to take the moves that other people aren't willing to take. Like right now, I'm spending 20, 30K per month on Instagram shoutouts, on paying an agency to post content on my behalf, and all these things that like most people would say you're fucking crazy. You're spending that much money on your personal brand, but it's like, what else am I doing with the money? I'm not going to buy a Lambo. I'm not going to buy a watch for now, right? Yeah. Money has no value in the bank. It's going down in value. Like the way I put it like this, to kind of end off this point. Yeah. Having cash in the bank is like having a stock that you know for a fact is going to go down in value. Like, would you, if you had Apple stock at $100 and you knew for a fact that it was going to go down by 7% this year, would you hold your Apple stock? No, but people with money, it's different, right? Oh, I should hold the money, right? I got to save the money, like hold it, wait for the right opportunity. Yeah. And I've learned that it's especially in today's economy, money is no longer as valuable. It's just not valuable. Like network is valuable and people are more valuable. Yeah, network is 100% valuable. People 100% more valuable. And just like you said, I've heard you say before, like money is energy, right? So like the more positive value, the more positive energy you put out naturally, you know, you're going to attract more of that into your life. Again, like we said, it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to what feels like for a lot of people, take the leap and actually do that. Was the first experience where you truly felt that when you had that, like about that 30K in your bank account and you decided, you know, I'm gonna invest 1/3 of this or so into this program? Yeah. Investing in myself, GrowthCon really helped though. I have to say, like I went to GrowthCon 2022. Mm-hmm. When you're in a room and you see, because the ticket for GrowthCon, so there's like $1,000 tickets and then there's $20,000 tickets at the top. Okay. When you're in a room with 4,000 people and you see billionaires walking on stage, I saw in the flesh how much money exists on this planet. You can see the Lambos through your screen, but when you're in a room like that and you see it and you feel it and you smell it, and it's a visceral experience of like how all the abundance in the world. Then it changes your mindset. Most people have shitty money mindsets because they lived in like a $200,000 house that their family's entire investment, like all of their family's net worth is in, you know, a regular ass house, couple cars, and, you know, no like extravagant vacations. They don't see it, right? They see it through the internet, but they're still kind of sketched out, right? They're worried about getting scammed, but they don't see the abundance in person. And so it's tough, right? It's tough. And so I think that's the biggest thing, because that was me, right? My family's like, you know, middle class, maybe upper middle class, but we weren't going and getting, like when I was in Miami last weekend with Grego Gallagher, we weren't getting $8,000 steak dinners, right? That just wasn't a thing. And when you see someone freaking throw your credit card down on the check without even looking and it's $8,000, you understand that money is not scarce. Right. Yeah, 100%. And my favorite quote just on this is, we get a lot of people are always like, oh, it's too saturated to do this. That market, you can't do this. It's too late to do this. I'm like, dude. The fact that there's that many people showing you it's possible means you 100% can do it. You're just choosing not to. And I know a big thing for you is like, we always are the ones making the decision.
And I always like to refer back to this quote I heard my senior year of college, ironically enough, from my favorite professor, where she's like, Jack, if I leave you with one thing, remember, like, if it is to be, it's up to me. So if it's going to happen, whatever, you're in control of everything that happens in your life. If the good things or the bad things happen, it's 100% up to you. No more like, just because someone says it's not possible or just because it seems like it might not, the whole picture is not there. It's all about, taking the first step, but taking ownership that it's your decision, regardless, which I've really liked and really pulled from a lot of your stuff. Now let's dive. Well, I want to touch on what we talked on earlier, something that we don't talk about too much on like this business centric sort of podcast, but you're a super busy entrepreneur, dude. You've literally like gone from step one to building this empire. We've talked about relationships a little bit. Personally, what's the personal relationship landscape like doing what you're doing now? How do you balance friendships, girlfriends and like those types of relationships, instead of them getting automatically like businessy and like going that route? How do you balance between personal life relationships and business life relationships?
Good question, man. You tell me. I haven't figured that out yet. No, but I mean, yeah. So my personal relationship past is I was a virgin until like 6 months ago. So I'm 22 right now. Mm-hmm. I lost my virginity right around my 22nd birthday. Shout out to Colombia. Colombia's a fun time.
Yeah.
So I lost my virginity right when I turned 22. And I had a girlfriend in like 2021, right when I started appointment setting, actually. So I had a girlfriend for a couple months. But really, like, I've not really had a lot of like dating experience in my life. There's been a couple girls in high school, and then there was the ex-girlfriend in 2021, and then there's like Colombia and a couple other things. But yeah, really for me, man, it's something I've struggled with a lot in my life is intimacy with women, even emotional intimacy with other guys, right? Like, I'm fine with having a casual conversation, but if I start having like a really deep conversation with someone, I just get uncomfortable. And a lot of it has to do with my upbringing. I was brought up in a very, very quiet family. My mom and my stepdad and my little brother, really awesome people, but they were just very quiet and not very emotional people. And so I struggle with being emotional myself and being emotionally vulnerable. And so that's kind of been something that, I have not worked on that much. And it's a slow process, right? I have a lot of approach anxiety around attractive girls. I have a lot of insecurities around my body and around, the way I look, and I'm worried I'm not attractive enough, or I'm not enough for these girls. I need to, make $1 million a month before I'll be enough. All these, BS beliefs that you carry along in your life. And it's really like, I've been on a few dates, but personally, man, like, it's something I have to work on for sure.
No, and I really appreciate hearing you say that, because a lot of guys, they're not willing to. They're going to come on this show in your position, and I'm going to ask them a question like that, and they're going to tell me this great broad story of what they'd love their dating life to be like, and I'll be able to tell immediately, like, okay, the guy's dated like 3 people. Like, I can, like, you can tell, just like you can tell with anything when people are talking about just whatever in social situations. And I think that's super cool, and I think it's super important that you bring that up and kind of showcase that personal side to yourself, because I will say one thing like that is super positive, and as someone who's maybe dated a few more people or just like been, I guess, more focused on girls at times where I probably shouldn't have been, it is so much better to build yourself and then provide like an experience and provide like go into these relationships knowing you can provide value than it really is to fake it till you make it and just try to get like that dream girl because you're funny or like that, this and that, and like spend time pursuing those things when you haven't built like the self-worth yourself and like haven't built the things that make you feel confident. So obviously you've done a hell of a job with that. So I hope your confidence doesn't waver at that area anymore. But it should give you a lot of knowledge to know, or like it should give you confidence to know anyone you do interact with, you can provide a lot of value to, whether it's, your business expertise, whether it's, you coming from adversity and what you learned kind of on that aspect of it. And I think people love engaging in those types of conversations where there is kind of that humility, but also that oh, this guy can like provide for me, and this dude can like give me a life that maybe not a lot of other people could, but also, you know, you have to be specific in what you're looking for. So like for you, I'm curious, like what would you look for in a girlfriend right now if they were to fit into your life at this point?
Yeah, it's something I've asked myself a lot.
Cool.
I'm really looking for someone, and I've thought about this before. Like Hermosi talks about this, right? He says the only two types of dynamics that work for entrepreneurs is either the ultra cheerleader that just supports but is completely detached from the business and everything you're doing, or someone that's literally your business partner.
Okay.
Like Layla, right? Like he has with her. And I think honestly, I would like, I kind of swing back and forth, man. Some days I'm like, man, I just want a cheerleader and I don't really want someone in this with me. And the other days I'm like, I kind of do want someone in this with me. And so it kind of varies, man. I'm not sure exactly what I want, which is kind of the problem. You know, I know what I would want on like from a physical perspective, you know, like the regular stuff like brown hair, black hair, you know, goes to gym, fit, takes care of herself, also into like personal development, that kind of thing. But it's as far as like the actual lifestyle, I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. I think I actually would prefer an entrepreneurial girl, because that was with my ex-girlfriend. She was there physically, like I vibed with her in that way, but she was too she was kind of in the middle, right? She had her own thing going on, but then she also was not like the full cheerleader, and you need someone that's one or the other. It can't be like this in the middle thing, you know?
Totally fair. Totally understand that. Now I like to ask this one before we get into closing. What are 2 questions you have for the host?
Questions I have for you, man. Yeah. Like, tell me, like, how does your offer work? How does your service work?
Yeah. So we have taken our offer 100%, 3 platforms, unlimited short form content and unlimited content repurposing. Our goal is to take the hassle out of social media. So, you know, we charge $1,500 a month for a full service package, and we actually sit down with all the creators we work with and help them create the potentially viral content. So we're looking at the niche they're in, we're looking at the brand they're in, we're looking at their target market, and then we're using our tools, our research to come up with, you know, viral hooks, viral content ideas, things that we see working for people that are where they want to be, and then recording an interview, a sit down interview with them where we know these things are going to be in that conversation, and simply cutting it and then posting it daily to platforms for them. Obviously we've talked about the big picture for that, you know, a little bit before, but right now I'd like to stay singular focused, and it's organic growth through social media. And that's our offer that we're doing right now.
I like it. Yeah. And then the second thing I would ask is like, what's your vision with like the podcast and the, and like your own brand and stuff like that?
Yeah. So the podcast, first and foremost, like I always tell people, it's a selfish thing. Like I 100%, I just love the opportunity I get to meet so many cool people by taking it seriously and by like just engaging and like creating this brand around it. But like the purpose behind it is to showcase, you know, the entrepreneur in all of us, but more specifically entrepreneurs that are in the process, whether no matter what stage they're at. And, you know, the idea of showing that it is possible, that you can, everyone I have on here usually loves what they're doing. So like my goal is to be as consistent as I can with this. Like we talked about earlier, I think of it as something that's simple that I can do every day. That's why I really liked what you said, because I'm like, and you know, it's just funny, the name, The Weekly Prophet, part of that is for me to help me stay consistent with it. So it helps me stay in check with, I know what week it is, I know what day of the year it is, because I have to, because all the content I want to put out around it is to also provide that value to people. So now when they're watching the podcast, they can kind of, maybe they look at week 7 in their year and they can go back and be like, oh, that was the guest that, you know, really changed things for me. And now they can go back, it was week 7, 2023, or, you know, 5 years from now, it'll be week 7, 2028 when everything flipped. And hopefully I'm like that guy that was like provided the guest who gave that insight. So yeah, my goal with to be as consistent as I possibly can with it for the sake of what the brand actually is, which is providing weekly and daily, you know, business and life advice to those that are in the process.
Oh man.
Yeah. Now, how do you currently measure success?
Success in general or success in business?
Let's do success in general.
Success in general. Being 1% better every day.
Love it.
Focusing on the process, not the outcome. The old Aaron was always outcome oriented. It was always about like you want to have goals, but I find that I've found so much success in having process oriented goals, right? Instead of I want to make 100K per month, it's I want to, have this many calls in the calendar and having this many people inside, posting this many Instagram stories every day, having content going out like this. That's what's, just the commitment to improving every day and focusing on the 3 pillars: health, wealth, and then relationships and dating. That's always what circulates in my head. Those are the 3 main areas.
Mm-hmm.
I have all my living it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So you've got like the base things, then you have self-actualization. And I believe self-actualization, and that's all about health, wealth, and happiness.
I used to write it every day last year in my journal. I journaled every single day last year. I wrote at the top, I'm happy, healthy, and wealthy. Like I couldn't cue this up even better. Like the fact that you said that is super cool. And like, that's just always been my thing. This year, I stopped being a slave to my habits, like people talk about, and I've been more a little free flowing with how I structure like the journaling side to it. But each day I look at it in the same book, and I just remember writing that at the top, and it helps me think about that as soon as I wake up. And like you said, you hit it right on the nose. What's one thing most people learn too late?
One thing most people learn too late. Too late is in like the end of their life, or like, and as
Like
in like,
they should
what do you mean
learn
by
it
too late?
sooner, but they either choose not to or fail to put themselves around the people that teach it to them. Maybe learn too late to achieve the success they want to ultimately achieve.
That's a really interesting question. What do people learn too late? They learn too late that their time is their most valuable asset. One thing I see that from people that aren't reaching the levels of success that they want is they value their money, obviously, and their current situation a lot, or sorry, they value their money and like the current relationships they have a lot more than their time. When you're looking to grow, you have to let go of old relationships. There's people from high school that have had to kind of cut off from my life in an unsavory way. And like, they were good people, but they just weren't in alignment with my path. And like nothing wrong with them. Just like, it was not, you have to start looking at when you spend time with people, you're paying them with your most valuable asset. Like, Jack, I hopped on this podcast because I believe that you're on a good trajectory, and I'm fine with spending my time. Valuing your time more than anything else, I think, is what people learn too late.
Very nice. And
they value other things over their time.
Yes, very cool. I really appreciate that, man. Seriously, it means a lot because I'm really happy that you're here, and like kind of how we've been able to go through this. I've learned so much, and I know people are also going to feel that same way. Now, finally, how do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? Well, I think the biggest thing is that I gave more than I took. Is that I built something. I don't really care about legacy because I'm kind of in alignment with Hermosi that nothing really matters. We're gonna die anyways. But I want to be remembered for just being a genuine person, just being a genuine dude, and helping people in the best way that I know how. And I would like to have the Grant Cardone level presence one day. I would like to impact people like Tony Robbins. But if I don't get there, that's also fine because I'm just enjoying my process every day.
You're just enjoying your process every day. Couldn't have ended it any better myself. Aaron, thank you so much for giving us 60 minutes and 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds of your time today. Any final thoughts? Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram. As I just mentioned, I've been active every day on there for months, probably over a year now, at the Aaron Sirota. Also on YouTube. I'm not super active on YouTube, but I do a few videos on there. And yeah, that's where you can find me. Instagram is the place to be, though.
Awesome, brother. Thank you.